Henry has come back to Hong Kong following years of service in the US military. Interested in pursuing a career as a teacher, he visits his old school, Tak Kai Secondary. The principal points out that he lacks teaching experience. However, upon presenting a recommendation letter from a superior, he is offered the position. Prior to Henry's departure, the principal mentions that the class he is set to instruct is considered the most challenging in the school. On the morning of his first day at school, Henry enters the classroom to find utter disorder. A few students are asleep, some are singing, others are playing video games, while many are cooking ramen on a portable stove. When the teacher enters, they disregard him and carry on with their activities. Henry attempts to get their attention, but they act as if they do not hear him. He stops attempting to redirect their focus and moves around the room, providing commentary on their current activities. He advises the students preparing food to consume less ramen due to its high sodium content. Afterwards, Henry assists a student named Zuffa who is playing the ukulele. In the same way, he cautions a young gamer about the potential radiation exposure from prolonged screen time. As the students begin to pay attention to him, he reveals his identity and writes his contact details on the whiteboard. The students giggle at his messy handwriting. Later, a student requests Henry to exit the classroom, but he simply laughs it off. Ignored by the kids, Henry decides to take matters into his own hands by using a rubber band and chalk to set off the fire sprinkler system in the room. As a result, the students hastily disperse to avoid getting wet. He eventually captures their complete focus and gives them a formal greeting as they enter his class. Following the lesson, a small group of 5 students with the lowest academic ranking gathers in the sports equipment room to smoke. The group leader, Jack, harbors feelings for a top-performing student in a different class. His peers discover him admiring her photo and mock him for it. The group's ongoing rivalry with the affluent and privileged students of the school's basketball team is evident, as they taunt Jack in the supply room due to his financial status. Subsequently, Jack and the group observe the basketball team practicing from a close distance. In a mischievous act, Jack accidentally drops a bottle onto the basketball court, causing the team leader to stumble and fall. The group chuckles but ends up in detention by the school's English teacher, Miss Liang. In order to evade detention, they pull a prank on her and escape while she is occupied tidying her desk. Meanwhile, the school's principal is troubled as the education board intends to cut 20% of their yearly funding. The board members visit the school for a tour to review the fund allocation, while Henry unexpectedly enters the classroom, where students have prepared a water bucket prank for him. However, Henry's quick reflexes enable him to thwart the falling bucket and surprise the students who were anticipating a prank on him. Henry requests Jack's cigarette pack, aware that he is a smoker. Jack obligingly hands it over, intrigued by Henry's intention. Then, Henry quizzes Zuffa to identify the 3 components found in a cigarette. Upon providing the correct answer, Zuffa is granted permission to skip class for the day. This prompts a clamor from the rest of the students who begin pounding on their desks, insisting that they should also be allowed to skip class. When they pause, he distributes cigarettes to everyone and requests them to examine it. Henry understands that merely pointing out its health consequences will not be effective. Therefore, he engages them in a discussion about the consequences of smoking and educates them on how tar accumulates in their lungs. This captivates the students' interest in learning from the teacher. When the class ends, he requests them to hand back the cigarettes, to which they reluctantly comply. During a cafeteria incident, the basketball team captain causes Jack's friend Bruce to trip over his leg, leading to a dispute that escalates into a physical altercation involving thrown food and tables. Following the upheaval, Henry learns that 5 students from his class have been suspended for instigating the fight. Henry intervenes and breaks up a fight between Jack and his adversary in the hallway. When Jack is urged to relax, he criticizes the school for its perceived unfairness, claiming that the wealthy students do not face consequences. Later that day, Henry delves into the records of 5 students to learn more about them. The first individual is Zuffa, a Pakistani immigrant's son who faces discrimination due to his race and is frequently suspected of theft by local law enforcement. Zuffa's main aspiration is to pursue a career as a musician. The second student is a young girl named Dinan. She has been a source of disappointment to her father from the moment she was born, as he had always desired a son. Throughout her life, Dinan has made efforts to earn her father's approval, including cutting her hair short and engaging in activities typically associated with boys. Despite her attempts, her father remains indifferent towards her, showing favoritism towards her younger brother instead. Next, we have siblings Bruce and Chris. When they were young children, their mother left them for another man, causing their father to develop a drinking problem. With only each other for support, Bruce sought solace in video games as a way to avoid reality. while Chris took on a job at a grocery store to provide for the family. On the other hand, Henry struggles to uncover any details about Jack's family history. In a subsequent scene, we witness Jack working as a waiter in a restaurant. An MMA enthusiast named Jianyin goes to a restaurant with his colleagues. While Jianyin is not paying attention, Jack takes his expensive lighter, but gets caught. Jianyin's companions then confront and physically assault Jack while verifying his identification. Upon learning that Jack is a student, Jianyin gives him some money and proposes a position as a food delivery person. Meanwhile, Henry goes to Zuffa's residence and discovers him trying to escape from his father and his companions after taking a ticket without permission, initially assisting him. He switches sides upon learning the reason for the pursuit and supports the father. Subsequently, he and Zuffa spend time together at the bridge. To inspire Zuffa to comply with his wishes, Henry participates in a street performance with a band. Soon after, Zuffa joins him, singing in public for the first time since being bullied in school years earlier. At the same time, Bruce and Chris's father arrives home late as usual and instructs them to fetch him a beer from the store. When the brothers decline, he raises his voice at them, telling them to leave his house. The following day, Henry talks to their father and persuades him to seek rehabilitation for the sake of his son's welfare. Meanwhile, Denon's father gives her a bag of cosmetics and urges her to behave more femininely. Denon is angered by his constant portrayal of her as inadequate. She puts makeup on her little brother, takes the car key, and attempts to drive her father's car away from home, but Henry intervenes just in time. He informs her about the illegality of driving without a license and proposes a different plan. Subsequently, they head to a go-kart racetrack together, where Henry invites her father to join them in a race. During the race, the father and daughter exhibit no compassion towards each other, leading to them straying off the racetrack. Denon's go-kart is unexpectedly struck by a vehicle, but she evades the collision. Later, her father, not realizing she is unharmed, grieves over the thought of her demise. Denon experiences a moment of clarity regarding her father's love for her and embraces him. The following day at school, a group consisting of Bruce and Chris is assigned to visit a rehab center to interview a former alcoholic undergoing recovery. The students are shocked to discover that the individual they were supposed to interview is actually their father. Curious, they inquire about how he began drinking. The man explains that he was deeply devoted to his wife, but when she departed during a very difficult period in his life, he turned to alcohol and became neglectful of his two children. While he does not disclose that Bruce and Chris are his sons, he expresses regret to them. This emotional encounter leaves the brothers in tears. In another location, Jack has begun working for Jianyin, an MMA bettor. Jianyin tempts Jack with a large sum of money to spike a fighter's drink in the upcoming match. Despite his initial hesitation, Jack ultimately agrees to the task. Prior to the fight, Jianyin sponsors a fighter but places bets against his victory. Jack manages to slip drugs into the fighter's drink, but his actions are discovered in the act. As he is about to point fingers at Jianyin, Jack is physically assaulted and confined inside a locker. After some time, Henry arrives at the location and inquires the combatants about the whereabouts of his pupil. Despite the men's advice to leave, Jack calls out for assistance from inside a locker. Realizing the trap, Henry confronts and swiftly subdues them. As the other fighters intervene, the situation escalates, but Henry deftly evades their strikes. Eventually, he incapacitates their top fighter, who is set to compete shortly. In this hospital scene, Henry receives medical treatment for his injuries while Jack attempts to disclose the truth about Jianyin, but is silenced. The incident is later reported on television, portraying Henry as the hero who defeated a professional fighter to protect his student. This positive image leads to an increase in Henry's popularity at school, as students begin to admire and respect him. They show their admiration by warmly welcoming him to class, a stark contrast to their previous attitudes. In a flashback, it is revealed that Henry was known for playing pranks during his school days. One incident involved him throwing water balloons at a student who was performing on the piano for parents at an event. This escalated into a physical fight between Henry and the student, resulting in the latter breaking his hand. Henry was subsequently suspended for the altercation, leading to his departure to the United States. Following this incident, students began to take Henry's classes more seriously and study diligently. For the upcoming college entrance exams, everyone is doing well except for Bruce, who has become dependent on medication. While Chris sought solace in video games to escape his family issues, Bruce turned to drugs. Due to his lack of focus, Bruce performs poorly in the practice entrance test. Henry offers to support him, but Bruce becomes increasingly despondent over time. In the end, he leaps from the balcony of their residence. Quickly taken to the hospital, he falls into a coma. The media distorts the information, pointing fingers at the school and Henry for Bruce's actions. Representatives from the Education Board question Henry and opt to cancel his teaching certification. As he gathers his belongings and departs from the school, the students follow, urging him to stay. They feel sad because he is not there, but they understand they need to do well on their upcoming test to make him happy. Since then, they work twice as much to show the school that Henry is a great teacher. On the day of the test, Jack and his classmates receive a message from Henry asking them to gather at school. An hour before the exam, as the students assemble, they discover that Jianyin had orchestrated a scheme to trap them within the school, preventing them from reaching the examination hall on time. His motive is to impart a lesson to Henry. Subsequently, upon Henry's late arrival at the school, he uncovers Jianyin's plot. Henry releases the students and engages in a confrontation with Jianyin's followers. To protect the children from harm, they flee and swiftly head to the exam venue as Henry engages in a battle with Jianyin. As they engage in a one-on-one confrontation, Jianyin discloses that he was the individual whom Henry targeted with water balloons during his childhood days. Surprisingly, it is discovered that Henry's actions led to Jianyin injuring his arm, thereby preventing him from participating in a significant music competition. Since the event took place, he has refrained from playing the piano and holds Henry accountable for shattering his aspiration. Despite Henry's attempts to explain, he is met with another attack as they grapple for control of a knife. Ultimately, Henry chooses not to harm him. Instead, he requests forgiveness for his actions in the past and departs. The students arrive promptly at the examination hall and successfully finish the test. Following a few weeks, they all excel with great success. Jianyin resumes playing the piano, but he realizes he has much practice ahead before reaching his previous skill level. Bruce swiftly recovers and commits to sitting for the entrance test next year. The principal is pleased as the board awards them a 20% bonus fund for their exceptional performance in the entrance test. Henry goes back to teaching and performs the fire sprinkle trick with a new group of students. The film concludes at this point.